To speak of prayer is often to speak of a monologue, a desperate or hopeful shouting into a vast, unheeding wind. We have been conditioned to believe that the language of the divine, or the mechanism of the cosmos, operates upon the same currency as our human marketplaces: words, demands, and petitions. We cast our desires into the sky like stones into a well, listening for the splash of an answer that sounds like our own voice reflected back to us. Yet, there exists a deeper, more ancient protocol for communication, a silent language that bypasses the clumsy limitations of human syntax. This is the language of resonance, a cosmic grammar written in the alignment of stars and the subtle shifts of the internal spirit. To understand how the universe actually answers your prayers is to unveil a hidden architecture of reality, one where the answer is not a response to what you say, but a mirror to what you are becoming. Imagine, if you will, the universe is a grand, hyper-intelligent tapestry of vibration, where every thought, every feeling, and every desperate yearning is a pull on a single thread. This tapestry does not possess ears to hear your pleas, nor a mouth to offer verbal reassurance. Instead, it possesses a structural integrity that responds to the frequency of the ask. We are like musicians playing in a vast hall of mirrors, and the silent language is the fundamental law of acoustics that governs the space. When we pray, we are often focusing on the lack, the hole in our lives we wish to fill. However, the universe, in its silent and majestic indifference to our vocabulary, responds only to the vibration we emit. If our prayer is rooted in the frequency of not having, the silent language returns to us a reality that confirms that state of absence. The profound mystery of this communication lies in the realization that the answer is always happening, but it is rarely delivered in the heavy, literal packaging we expect. The practical significance of this shift in perspective cannot be overstated. We live in a world of noisy manifestation, where we are told to visualize, to affirm, and to demand. Yet, the persistent frustration of the unanswered prayer suggests that we are missing the subtle frequency. The cosmic dimension of this topic reveals that the universe is an active participant in our evolution, but it communicates through a set of hidden signs, synchronicities, sudden closed doors, the inexplicable shift in our own desires, and the slow, patient unfolding of circumstances that we initially mistake for silence. To the untrained eye, the universe seems mute. To the heart that has learned the silent language, the world is a constant, roaring dialogue. Every no is a structural redirection, and every wait is a necessary calibration of our internal compass. This is the liturgy of the event, where the events of our lives serve as the actual sentences of the divine. Metaphorically, we are like travelers standing on a shoreline, calling out to an ocean that we believe is separate from us. We wait for a voice to boom from the waves, but the ocean answers through the tide, the movement of the salt, and the shifting of the sand beneath our feet. The secret of prayer is that the ocean is not listening to your words. It is feeling your weight. Silent language is the way the universe adjusts itself around the gravity of your intent. When we approach this reality with a sense of wonder, we begin to see that our lives are not a series of random accidents interspersed with the occasional miracle. Instead, they are a continuous, highly sophisticated feedback loop. The hidden layers of reality are not distant or unreachable. They are woven into the very fabric of our frustrations and our unexpected joys. The answer to a prayer is often the very obstacle that forces us to develop the strength required to hold the thing we asked for in the first place. This unveiling of the silent language requires us to reconsider the nature of the vessel. If we view ourselves as separate entities shouting into a vacuum, we are doomed to disappointment. But if we recognize ourselves as local nodes in a universal network, we understand that our prayers are actually internal commands that rearrange the local field of probability. The universe answers not by changing its laws for us, but by revealing how its laws are already working in our favor when we align with them. This cosmic dialogue is a dance of shadows and light, where the silence is actually the space required for the new reality to gestate. To the ego, silence is an absence. To the soul, silence is the incubation of the infinite. We are invited to move past the frantic need for verbal confirmation and enter the great stillness, where we can hear the gears of the cosmos turning in response to our deepest, unvoiced commitments. As we situation this exploration in the context of human experience, we see that the silent language is the bridge between the mystical and the mundane. It is found in the sudden, inexplicable urge to take a different path to work, only to avoid an accident or meet a long-lost friend. It is found in the way a project falls apart 3 times, only to be replaced by an opportunity we couldn't have imagined. This is the universe speaking through the medium of time and space. The significance is not just in getting what we want, but in being transformed by the process of the conversation. The original prayer was never a request for a change in circumstances. It was a request for a change in vision. By learning the silent language, we stop asking the universe to be our servant and begin to ask it to be our mirror. We start to look for the answers, not in the clouds, but in the intricate, beautiful, and often painful geometry of our own unfolding lives. The wonder of this realization is that we are never truly unheard. The idea of an unanswered prayer is a linguistic illusion born from our inability to read the cosmic response. The universe is a perfect mirror, and its silence is its most profound testimony to our own creative power. It is waiting for us to stop talking so that it can show us what we are saying with our lives. This section serves as the threshold into a deeper investigation of the guiding pillars that support this silent dialogue. We are peeling back the velvet curtain of the material world to glimpse the vibrational mechanics that operate behind the scenes. This is not just a spiritual theory, it is a fundamental law of being. The silent language is the mother tongue of the soul, and to remember it is to finally realize that the conversation we have been seeking has never, for a single moment, ceased. To navigate the silent language, we must first dismantle the illusion of the linguistic divine, the pillar that tethers us to the belief that the cosmos processes human dialect. The first core concept is the law of vibrational congruence. In the grand mechanics of the universe, there is no judgment of the prayer, only a mathematical response to the frequency of the seeker. We often operate under the illusion of the petition, where we believe that the sincerity of our words or the intensity of our begging can override the actual state of our being. However, the silent language is a system of harmonic echoes. If a man prays for abundance while his internal landscape is a desert of scarcity and fear, the universe does not hear the word wealth. It feels the vibration of lack. Because the universe acts as a mirror, it must return a reality that resonates with that lack. The core theme here is that the universe does not answer your words, it answers your frequency. To pray effectively is not to speak, but to tune the internal instrument until it resonates with the reality one desires to inhabit. Intertwined with this resonance is the theme of the narrative of events, the concept that the universe speaks through the syntax of circumstance. In our human ignorance, we often view a closed door as a failure or an unanswered prayer. But in the silent language, a no is a profound and active communication. This is the pillar of strategic redirection. We must understand that we are often praying from the limited perspective of the egoic horizon, while the universe responds from the perspective of the total field. A setback is frequently a vibrational shield, protecting the seeker from a path that would lead to a dissonant outcome. The guiding concept here is that existence is an articulated response. Every delay, every serendipity, and every sudden shift in the weather of our lives is a sentence in a dialogue. The truth is not found in the fulfillment of the wish, but in the structural integrity of the journey that follows. We are being spoken to through the medium of our own days. A third guiding pillar is the concept of the void of gestation, which addresses the human discomfort with silence. In the matrix of the mundane, we equate silence with absence or neglect. However, the silent language utilizes silence as the space of potentiality. When a prayer is cast, there is often a period of external stillness that feels like abandonment. This is the theme of the incubation of the infinite. Just as a seed must endure the dark, silent pressure of the earth before it can break the surface, a command of the heart requires a period of non-interference to rearrange the field of probability. The core concept is that the silence is the answer in progress. It is the universe's way of saying that the work is happening beneath the threshold of your perception. To demand a verbal or immediate sign is to dig up the seed to see if it is growing. It is a violation of the rhythm of becoming that governs all manifestation. Furthermore, we must delve into the concept of the mirror of self-recognition. This pillar suggests that the universe answers our prayers by bringing us face to face with the version of ourselves that is capable of sustaining the request. We often pray for the result without being willing to undergo the refinement. If one prays for a deep and soulful love, the universe may answer not with a lover, but with a series of situations that force the seeker to confront their own inability to be vulnerable. This is the alchemical response, the universe providing the heat necessary to burn away the dross of the old self. The core theme is that the universe is more interested in your evolution than your convenience. It answers the prayer by providing the curriculum required to embody the desired outcome. The silent language is therefore a pedagogical one, teaching us that we are the architects of the very miracles we seek. Finally, we encounter the pillar of synchronicity as the universal punctuation. In the silent language, there are no accidents, only meaningful alignments. When we are in a state of true prayer, which is a state of coherent intent, the universe begins to mark the path with symbols. A chance meeting, a recurring number, a line in a book that addresses a hidden thought. These are the glottal stops and commas of the cosmic dialogue. They serve as vibrational breadcrumbs that confirm we are in alignment with the flow of the whole. The core concept here is that the universe is a holographic intelligence, and every part of the system is in constant communication with every other part. When you change your internal state, the external system must shift to accommodate the new data. Synchronicity is the visible evidence of this invisible rearrangement, a wink from the infinite that acknowledges the conversation is ongoing. These core themes form the grammar of the silent language. They reveal a universe that is not a distant judge, but an intimate, responsive field of awareness. By moving past the illusions of verbal petition and immediate gratification, we begin to see the deeper truths of vibrational congruence, strategic redirection, gestational silence, alchemical evolution, and synchronistic alignment. We realize that we are not shouting at the sky. We are dancing with the fabric of reality itself. The answer is not a destination we reach at the end of the prayer, but the very frequency we choose to inhabit while we wait. This understanding prepares us to look at the stories of the silence, the deeper symbolic narratives that illustrate how this dialogue has played out across the eons of human and cosmic history. To bridge the gap between the mechanics of frequency and the felt truth of the heart, we must listen to the allegory of the master luthier and the unstrung hall. Imagine a grand cathedral built with such acoustic perfection that the smallest whisper can be heard in the furthest corner. But the hall itself has no voice of its own. It can only amplify and return what is brought into it. A traveler enters this hall, carrying a beautifully carved lute, and begins to shout toward the vaulted ceiling, demanding that the building produce a song of joy. He screams for a melody, he begs for a rhythm, but the hall remains stubbornly, almost mockingly silent. Frustrated, the traveler sits on the floor and begins to tune his instrument. As he strikes a single clear note, a perfect C, the entire cathedral begins to hum in sympathy. The stone walls, the stained glass, and the very air within the rafters take up the vibration, returning a majestic choral swell of that same note. This is the myth of the resonant answer, the realization that the universe is not a composer who writes a song for you, but a masterfully built hall that can only return the music you have first the courage to play upon the instrument of your own soul. In the ancient lore of the silent language, there is the parable of the gardener of the midnight seed. A woman, desperate for a harvest that would sustain her village, prays to the sky for a garden of golden wheat. She stands in an empty field every morning, describing the height of the stalks and the richness of the grain, yet the earth remains brown and barren. She accuses the sky of deafness and the earth of cruelty. One night, a voice comes to her in the silence between breaths and whispers that the sky cannot grow what the hands have not hidden. The woman realizes that her prayer was a description, but not an invitation. She begins to dig, burying her intentions like seeds in the dark, moist soil. For months, nothing happens. The silence is more profound than ever. But beneath the surface, the silent language is in a fever of activity. The seeds are cracking, the roots are mapping the dark, and the water is being drawn into the heart of the dormant life. The secret of this narrative is that the answer is the growth in the dark. When the wheat finally breaks the surface, it is not a miracle sent from above, but the inevitable externalization of a silent internal commitment that refused to be discouraged by the absence of a visible sign. Consider also the story of the king and the mirror of truth. A king, seeking wisdom for a difficult decision, prays to the Great Spirit for a sign. He waits for a thunderclap or a vision in the fire. But instead, he is met with a series of minor, irritating inconveniences. His favorite horse goes lame, his crown is misplaced by a servant, and a heavy rain delays his departure to the hunt. Enraged, the king believes his prayers have been ignored. It is only much later, while sitting in the quiet of his library, that he realizes the lameness of his horse prevented him from riding into an ambush. The lost crown forced him to practice humility, and the rain allowed him the time to read a forgotten scroll that contained the very answer he sought. This is the allegory of the disguised response, the understanding that the universe often answers our prayers by unmaking our plans. It speaks not in the language of yes, but in the language of protective obstruction. The silence the king felt was actually the universe's protective hand, moving the pieces of his life into a safer and more enlightened configuration, while he was too blinded by his own expectations to notice. There is a deeper, more visceral narrative known as the legacy of the shattered jar. It is whispered among the desert mystics that a seeker once prayed for the wine of divine ecstasy. She wanted to feel the overwhelming rush of universal love. In response, the universe did not fill her cup. Instead, it began to systematically shatter every jar she owned. Her comforts were taken, her certainties were broken, and she was left standing with nothing but her open, empty hands. In her despair, she realized that she had been asking for the wine, while her vessels were already full of vinegar and salt. The shattering was the preparation of the vessel. The universe was answering her prayer by creating the empty space required to hold the very thing she desired. The symbolic truth of this story is that the silent language often sounds like the breaking of our own lives. We mistake the clearing of the ground for a disaster, when it is actually the first movement of the universe's affirmative reply. Finally, we encounter the myth of the twin loom. It is said that there are two looms weaving the tapestry of a human life. One is the loom of human effort, which we see and control, and the other is the loom of cosmic response, which sits behind a thick, velvet curtain. We throw our shuttles back and forth, praying for a pattern of gold and blue. Sometimes, we see our thread disappear behind the curtain, and for a long time, nothing comes back. We think the second loom is broken or the weaver is asleep. But what we do not see is that the weaver is taking our thread and intertwining it with threads of starlight, ancestral wisdom, and the needs of 1,000 other souls. When the thread finally returns to our side of the loom, it is part of a pattern so complex and beautiful we could never have designed it ourselves. This narrative illustrates the patience of the pattern, the realization that the silent language requires the shuttle to go behind the curtain. The answer is not the thread itself, but the integration of the individual into the whole. These stories serve as vibrational maps for the seeker. They reveal that the silence of the universe is never a void, but a workspace. Whether it is the resonance of the cathedral, the growth of the midnight seed, the protection of the disguised response, the breaking of the jar, or the pattern of the twin loom, the message remains consistent. The universe is always answering, but it speaks in the language of process and structural change. By inhabiting these narratives, we stop looking for a voice and start looking for the movement. We begin to recognize the answers in the very fabric of our challenges and the slow, majestic unfolding of our destiny. This shift in perception prepares us to bring these grand symbolic truths down into the grit and grace of our everyday lives. To translate the grand rhythmic echoes of the silent language into the practical navigation of a human life is to move from being a petitioner to being a vibrational strategist. The first and most profound real-world implication of this transition is the abolition of the why me narrative. In the old paradigm of verbal prayer, we viewed the universe as a distant authority that could be persuaded or, conversely, one that was ignoring us. When we integrate the concept of vibrational congruence, we realize that our life circumstances are not rewards or punishments, but status reports on our current resonance. Practically, this means that when a door closes or a project fails, we stop looking at the door and start looking at our own internal frequency. We ask, what version of myself am I broadcasting that makes this outcome the most resonant match? This shift in perspective provides an immediate, grounded sense of radical agency. Instead of wasting energy in frustration or begging, we turn our attention to the internal tuning required to shift the external response. A second practical integration involves the mastery of the active wait. If the silent language utilizes the void of gestation, then the human response must be one of confident non-interference. In our modern culture of instant gratification, we are conditioned to believe that if an answer doesn't arrive within our preferred timeline, it isn't coming. This leads to vibrational meddling, the act of changing our minds, doubting our intent, or frantically trying to force an outcome. Practical integration means treating the period of silence following a prayer as a required structural phase. Just as a builder does not assume a house is a failure because the concrete is still drying, the seeker understands that the universe is currently pouring the foundation. The takeaway is to maintain the frequency of the result even when the evidence of the senses suggests nothing is happening. This is the ultimate test of the silent language. Can you remain in resonance with the answer while the universe is still in the incubation stage? Furthermore, we must address the transformation of adversity into alchemical data. When the universe answers a prayer for strength by giving us a heavy burden, or a prayer for patience by giving us a long line, it is speaking the language of direct experience. Real-world implications here involve a radical rereading of our challenges. Instead of seeing an obstacle as an unanswered prayer, we see it as the necessary curriculum. If you pray for financial freedom and the universe responds by making your current job unbearable, the silent message is that the container of your old life is too small for the abundance you requested. The transformation of your life requires the dismantling of the old structure. Practically, this means we stop resisting the heat of our challenges and start asking, what is being burned away to make room for what I asked for? This approach turns every frustration into a meaningful dialogue with the infinite, where the answer is found in the growth forced upon us by the situation. Another vital integration is the refinement of environmental awareness through synchronicity. To speak the silent language is to become a cosmic tracker, noticing the subtle way the universe punctuates our days. This is not about being superstitious, but about being contextually aware. In the real world, this looks like paying attention to the coincidences that cluster around a specific decision. If you are considering a move and you keep seeing the name of that city in random places, or if 3 different people mention the same book in a week, the universe is utilizing holographic punctuation to confirm your alignment. Practical integration means keeping a synchronicity ledger, noting the small, quiet ways the universe winks at you. Over time, this builds a sense of universal trust, where you realize you are in a constant, playful, and highly specific conversation with reality. You stop feeling like a solitary soldier and start feeling like a participant in a symbiotic intelligence. Finally, we encounter the duty of vibrational integrity in speech and action. If the universe answers who you are rather than what you say, then every moment of your life is a prayer. The silent language implies that there is no off switch to our communication with the cosmos. Practically, this means we must align our mundane actions with our grand petitions. You cannot pray for a life of peace while engaging in high-conflict gossip. You cannot pray for health while treating your body with neglect. The universe reads the total signal. Real-world implications involve a cleaning of the house, ensuring that the small, daily choices we make are in harmonic resonance with the large, soul-level changes we seek. We realize that our lives do not have spiritual compartments. The way we treat a waiter or manage our time is just as much a prayer as the words we whisper in the dark. The answer is a reflection of the unified self. These practical integrations move the concept of the silent language out of the realm of mysticism and into the realm of applied consciousness. By shifting from petition to resonance, mastering the active wait, reframing adversity, tracking synchronicity, and maintaining vibrational integrity, we become fluent in the mother tongue of the universe. We realize that the answer is not a gift dropped into our laps from above, but a structural realignment of our entire reality in response to our own internal evolution. We are no longer waiting for a voice to speak to us. We are watching our lives become the very thing we prayed for, one silent, geometric shift at a time. This grounded mastery leads us toward the final bridge, the realization that the dialogue is ultimately an act of universal remembrance. We have traced the silent currents of the cosmos, from the vibrational mechanics of the heart to the grand unfolding tapestries of circumstance. And we arrive finally at the realization that the silent language is not a foreign tongue to be learned, but a primal memory to be reclaimed. The journey through these sections has revealed that the universe is not a distant entity to be bargained with, but a responsive, intelligent field that is inseparable from our own consciousness. We have seen that the answer to our prayers is never absent. It is simply delivered in the currency of being rather than the currency of speaking. To conclude this exploration is to stand at the threshold of a new way of existing, a life where the dialogue with the infinite is no longer a desperate search for confirmation, but a steady, joyful participation in the act of creation. The mystery has been stripped away to reveal a truth so simple it is often overlooked. The universe is always saying yes to the version of yourself you are currently broadcasting. The transformational call of this realization is an invitation to abdicate the throne of the victim. For too long, we have lived as though we were at the mercy of a silent, capricious God or a cold, mechanical void. The knowledge of the silent language restores our sovereignty. It demands that we take absolute responsibility for the internal climate we cultivate. The call is to move from asking for light to becoming the sun. It is a summons to refine your internal resonance with such precision and devotion that the universe has no choice but to mirror that clarity in your external world. This is not a call to perfection, but to vibrational honesty. It is an invitation to stop lying to the universe with your words while your heart tells a different story. When you align your deepest convictions with your daily actions, the silent language becomes a roaring anthem of manifestation. This shift in perspective requires a radical surrender of the ego's timeline. We are called to trust the gestation of the infinite, to understand that the silence of the universe is the silence of a master artist at work, not the silence of a vacant room. The transformation occurs when you can inhabit the wait with the same level of gratitude as the arrival. You are being asked to develop a cosmic patience that recognizes the structural integrity of the universe's response. If the answer has not yet appeared, it is only because the vessel is still being tempered or the field is still being cleared. The transformational call is to live as though the prayer has already been answered. For in the realm of the silent language, the moment of intent is the moment of fulfillment. The rest is merely the slow, beautiful movement of the material world catching up to the speed of the soul. Ultimately, the exploration of the silent language leads us to the unity of the conversation. We realize that we are not a small part of the universe trying to get the attention of the whole. We are the universe itself, having a conversation with its own localized nodes. Every prayer is a movement of the whole, and every answer is a self-correction of the one. The transformation is the move from I and it to I and thou, and finally to I. The dialogue is an act of universal remembrance, where we stop trying to get things from the cosmos and start remembering how to be the cosmos. This is the end of the search and the beginning of the dance. A silent language is the mother tongue of love, and it is spoken in every heartbeat, every falling leaf, and every quiet breath of a soul that has finally found its peace. As you walk back into the vivid, noisy theater of your daily life, do not go as a petitioner. Go as a harmonizer. Carry the stillness of the cathedral, the patience of the midnight seed, and the courage of the shattered jar within you. Look at the world not for what it is giving you, but for what it is reflecting to you. Listen for the grammar of resonance in your frustrations and the synchronicity of light in your joys. The conversation has never paused, and the universe has never stopped answering. It is waiting for you to listen with your whole life. You are heard, you are held, and you are being spoken to in every moment of the great silence. The answer is not coming. The answer is already here, vibrating in the very marrow of your being, waiting for you to finally, beautifully say yes back.